Okay. So I guess I'm just going to do this here. You could do this and you could create a new file, call this like objects.js. But really what I just want to do a quick review of objects. We did briefly talk about this. Remember, objects are used. So when we think about a list or an arrays, that's like when we want to describe many things, like a list of numbers, a list of people, a list of cars, a list of whatever. Objects are when you have one thing that has many values. So like a person might have like a name, an age, hair color, eye color, height. One person is going to have all of those values. So when we talk about objects, you also might hear these called like, the way that we're kind of talking about them is as like associative arrays, but they still are objects. You might hear this word thrown out though, associative array, even though it's not an array, it's a key value pair. So I think there's kind of these two ways we use them. And the first way is the way I was just kind of describing like to describe, one thing like a person or a car. The other way that you'll see them used is like something like and they'll use the same way, but it's a good way to think about it, like a dictionary, right? In a dictionary, you would have the key, that would be the word, and then the value would be the definition. Zach, because like you could think of like a dictionary, it's not like, you can't really describe a dictionary as having like a set of like attributes. It's going to have like a list of words, and then those words are going to have definitions. Where like a person, you could kind of create this person object that could represent many people, but one person's going to have, all people are going to have a name, but their values are going to be different. So let's do that. Like, let's just to kind of show you this, like I could have like you could be like a dictionary, or it could be like something like a translation. So I could have like const John. Wait, we have a John in here. I like to let's do Paul. We don't have a Paul here. Paul equals name. Age is 22. And then I could have another person, George. Because objects can be good to describe things that have uniform data, like kind of going back to the arrays, how like we wanted arrays that had uniform data, like an array of numbers, an array of strings. Sometimes we like to have our objects be uniform in their key values. So like I'm creating these people objects. They both have the name key, which are both going to be strings. And then they both have age, which are going to be a number. The values themselves might be different, but they have that same structure. Like, does this make sense? Like, I'm probably not going to want to do stuff like this. Have one object that has a name key, and then the second one have a first name key. We're going to want to keep these the same. And this will kind of make sense once we get to array of objects. And I don't need to I can just do this as a let. because then I could have an array of objects. And it's going to be nice, once again, now this is uniform data, right? I have an array of objects, but those objects have a name and age key. But yeah, I could have something like this where I could have like a, let Spanish. I could have this object, that might be something like this, where the key could be like the word in English, and then the value could be like the translation. So to access, and this is kind of what we talked about, to access, a item, an object, two ways. I'm going to say two ways. There is the dot notation and the square bracket notation. Both work. So I could do Paul, let's just do a console.log. Paul name as a string. So I do the key that I want to grab, or I could also just do dot name. Let's do node object.js objects, and those both give me I want to change a value. I can just do, Paul dot age equals 45. Straightforward. Paul dot age would be 45. I want to add a value to an object. I can just do Paul dot, new value. You can just create it kind of, like that, and then it's going to be there. So those are some of the things we can do with objects. So we can change a value, we can add a value. We can delete, I should say add a key value. We can delete a key value. We just use the delete keyword. I might need to Google this. I might need to check this. Let's just make sure. So that's undefined. I'm just going to log Paul. Yeah. Just say the delete keyword and then pass it, Paul.delete. And now that's gone. We can grab the keys, get keys. So we can use this object dot keys. Paul, let's just do a console.log of this, console.log object.keys. That gives us back an array of the keys in that object. the values. That'll give us an array of the values. Why not? So there's more stuff, but I just kind of, we can go into an object, we can add things, we can remove things, we can get the keys, stuff like that. We could see if it has a specific key and so forth. So this is just kind of some of the basic things we can do with objects. But what I kind of want to go into now, and let me copy and paste this and throw this into Slack, because I kind of want to work with that. Because what I want to get into next is, did I have too many VS codes open? Is go into the array of objects. So we have two people, right? And I'm going to delete all of this stuff to clean this up, just so we have what we need. Let's even make a third one. So I have three people and I have an array. So what can I do on an array? Well, I can do a for each. Let's say I want to find average age. Let's do this little brain teaser. Let's maybe start this with, before we go to an array of objects, because that's a little challenging, let's maybe start this a little simpler. So we're going to eventually want to do this. But let's maybe start something simpler. Let's just get some numbers. 10, 20, 30. So let's just first worry about how to do this on an array of numbers, and then we'll try to think about how to do it on an array of objects. So how do I find the average? So first of all, without thinking about code or JavaScript, how do I get the average of a list?
Sum of them all divided by the number of them.
Yeah, so that's the first one. Sum of all divided by length. Okay, so that kind of gives me maybe a little hint of what I need to do. Like I need to add up. Well, I need to like loop through and add up all numbers. So that looks like we could do a for each loop, right? But I need to keep, this is kind of like with the min and max. I need to keep track of the sum. So I think this is probably the hardest part of this is before I loop, I'm just going to declare a variable and set it equal to 0. I think that's a little trick. Because if we don't do that, what am I going to add this stuff to? So let's go through each number. If I don't have this sum, it's like, well, what do I add it to? Well, let's declare a variable right here called sum that's going to keep track of it. I'm going to set that equal to 0. And then I can just do a sum plus equals num. Right, and then I can say, let average down here equal. So I start this one. This is a little bit of the trick here, set up this variable. And we go through, add, all numbers to sum. And then we get our average. So our average now, it can just be our sum divided by nums dot length. Console.log average. Undefined is not a function. Let's comment this out for now. That people 20. That's right, 10, 20, 30. Our average is 20. Let me give you a little bit of a teaser. So there's actually a better way to do this. We're going to see there's other methods than just for each. There's actually this method called reduce. This one is very hard to explain, and it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. But I just kind of want to show it to you. So reduce, because I think this one takes about like 8 times to like go over to kind of understand what it's actually doing. So this is just your first time. So if you don't understand any of this, don't worry. So what I give reduce is I give it a function. And this function takes 2 things. It takes this thing that we can call an accumulator. I'll just call it accum for short, because I can call it whatever. So that's going to be the first thing we give it. And then it actually takes, and then it's like the for each, then it goes through each thing. And I have access to each thing. And then I can actually give this a second value, which is the starting value of the accumulator. So I'm setting the starting value of the accumulator to 0. And then I'm going to go through like each thing, and I'm going to be able to go through each number. And what this function returns is going to be the next accumulator. So if I return the accumulator plus the number, what that's going to do, so my accumulator is going to start off at 0. And then I'm going to go through each of my things. So I go 10. So my number is going to be 10. So I go 0 plus 10. So that's what I return. That becomes my new accumulator. Okay, so then I go 10 plus 20, because that's my next number. Okay, so that 30 becomes my next accumulator. Then I do 30 plus 30. That becomes my next accumulator. And then the reduce function returns the final accumulator. So that's going to be my total. And then I can do my average here. It would be total divided by that. So yeah, see if that works. And there we go. This is the reduce is definitely a little more advanced, but reduce is a very powerful method on arrays that you can go through each thing and kind of do something with it and return something useful. So I like just an example, I was able to use reduce to find the total, to sum up all the numbers. So that was just a little bit of a teaser. Like I said, reduce, I think it takes like 20 times. It takes forever to kind of understand. But it's by far a very powerful method. Okay. Where is my VS Code? All right, so we did that with just, any questions on, let's just go back to the for each part of this. Any questions on that, going through the array of numbers? Does that logic make sense? We set up the sum, setting it equal to 0. Then we go through each thing, just adding adding each thing to our sum, and then we do the division. Then we get our average. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this since I select that out. Now we can do this with an array of objects. So we want to find the average age. Okay, so it's going to be the exact same thing pretty much. I can just say like let sum equals 0. We're going to go through our people array. I'm going to do a for each. Call this person. Let's just do a console.log. What is my what are you going to expect when I run this code?
The arrays to log.
Is it going
Should
to
just
what you're
log their
saying?
names, right?
It's going to, is it going, wait, I heard a log the array or log the name. So
I
I guess
said
what I'm
log.
at, what is this person going to be? Like, I'm going to go through, I'm going to log each person. What is that going to be? Like, what if I did type of, and what if I just called this X?
The type of would be a string.
So it would, I mean, let's see it, let's run it. It's an object.
Oh.
Because the reason it's an object, so I'm declaring my 3 variables here. These, like if I did console.log, type of Paul, and console.log just Paul. I'm not even going to do this for each. Right? Paul is an object, and I'm logging Paul just right there. So what I'm doing with the for each loop, I'm putting all of these people objects in this array, and then I'm going to go through each of those things in the array and log them. And they are all objects, and they all have, so it's going to log that full object. So I don't really care about the name. I really just, in this function, I really just care about the age. So how would I log the age of each person, like in line 20? How, and if you're a little confused about that out inside of the loop, how would I log Paul's age right here? How do I do that?
Dot age, or you can
Paul,
index it.
Yeah, I do
Paul
dot
dot
age. There, that gives the age. Okay, so I do dot age. So can't I just do dot age here? And there we go. Now I'm logging the ages of all of these things. Now I'm calling this X because this is just a function definition. This is a function that I'm just passing. It's an anonymous. I can call this parameter whatever. It's just a parameter, but I'm expecting it to be an object that has an age key. Now I probably should be a little more descriptive and call that person. Cool. But now we do have our person.age. So now I can just do the sum plus equals person.age. So that's just the one difference between the array of numbers and the array of objects. I need to do the dot notation to go in and grab that value. And then I could do a, average. Other than that, the logic's going to be the same. You could say sum divided by people dot length. And we could console.log average. And yeah, that looks about right, 25. Let's look at that example. Let's do another one. What if I wanted to get a list of just the names? Let's get a list. Let's get a sorry, let me make this a little more. Let's get an array of strings, because this really isn't that readable, right? Like these objects are kind of like, ew, those don't look that good. Let's make these a little more UI friendly. Let's get an array of strings, that say, it'll say this, it'll say like, hi, I am name. We'll actually want the name there, and I am age years old. So does that make sense? I want to create an array of strings that look like that. Cool. So let's do that. Let's just first worry about how do I go through each of these things and maybe create this string. Let's maybe not worry about the array for right now. One way I could do this is I could just make a function right here. Get info. This function is going to take a person. And it is going to return this string. I'm going to show you something that's really nice and a new feature of JavaScript since like 2016. So I guess it's not that new. This is called, oh my gosh, a template literal. This is an easy way to, it's called interpolation, to use variables within a string. This can be really useful because I want to have this message that's saying, hi, I am name, but I actually want it to be, the user's name. So what I can do, so I'm going to use this syntax. So I need to use backticks for this, but I can say, well, let me do this first. Yeah, well, let's just do this. Sorry, I'm going to do person.name, right? That's how I get the name from a person object, is I do the .name. Let's maybe just stick with the name for now, and then we'll worry about the age. So now I can say, hi, I am person.name. And I can say get info, and I can pass that Paul. That's not actually logging that, so I need a console.log. Well, let's console.log get info. Paul. Hi, I am Paul. I could just throw in an object right here, name Tony. It just needs, in this method right now, it needs to have that name key, right? Hi, I am Tony. I don't know if this is confusing to write this, to throw this function inside of the console.log. I could just declare that in a variable, Paul info. Both ways work. One might look more readable to you. Okay, let's take a little breather here. Any questions right here? Kind of a couple things. So I'm writing a function that is taking this person parameter. And once again, with this is my function definition. I can call it many times, but I'm expecting this person. This name person doesn't really have any bearing. It's just it's just something descriptive. What I'm really expecting that is happening is the person who's calling this function is going to pass me an object with the key name. What if someone passes me, or what if I try doing this? I'm just going to comment these out really quickly. And you can just watch this. You don't have to code this. What's going to happen if I do this? I say get info and I pass it 1. If I were to do a console.log right here of person and a console.log type of person, with how this code is right now, if I just ran these 5 lines of code, what would happen? Any guesses?
Be the first person.
What?
Would it be the first person like Paul or whoever?
Will it
Well,
say,
first of all,
"Hi, I am
I'm
undefined"?
saying I'm just where's Paul doesn't exist. Let me do this. Because I get what you're saying. What I was saying, this is the program. That's all it is.
Would it just be person?
Would it just be one?
It'd be 1.
Would it be one.name?
Yeah, so this would log 1, right? What is this going to log?
Number?
That would be a number. Yeah, this is going to be 1.name. Well, what is that going to be? Does 1 have a .name on it? No,
No, it doesn't.
that's going to be an error. So if I run this, so this is demo.js. How did that not? Oh, that's returning that. Let's just do this. Is that really not breaking? Okay, yeah, there's our error. Except that is line 4. Let's just do it.
So is
Let's
it just breaking because you're using the you're using the person parameter and using .name, and that doesn't really exist, right? Like the whole .name is not a thing right now.
Okay, this is what I wanted. Okay, this is undefined. I should show this. Okay, so if I have a object, I'm surprised that's actually not what. Why is that not blowing up? How is that not? I'm confused why this is not exploding. Let's see here. You let x equal 1, x.name. How is that undefined? Oh my God. Okay. All right. Yeah, okay, I guess that's undefined for some reason. But yeah, I would really expect that to be an error because 1.name, like what the hell does that mean? But yeah, because the takeaway here is it's once again, when I was talking about when I was talking about this example, the plus sign. If I do 1 plus 1, that equals 2, right? But if I do car plus taco, like what is that? Like that is
Taco
just
truck.
like
Just kidding.
oh yeah, that's a taco truck.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Taco truck. Boom. Yeah, you might, maybe it is in JavaScript, who knows? But the thing here, person is just, this isn't a person. This is a function definition. I'm expecting this. I'm expecting person to be an object with name, which is going to be a string, and an age, which is going to be a number. Okay. If you pass me anything else, I can't guarantee this is going to work. So if you pass me 1 and you log like person.name, it's not going to work. Do you understand how if I did get info and pass it in an array, what is person going to be now in this case? It's just going to be this array type of person. That would be array person. Like that should really explode. Come on. I can do like array.name. I really do not know. It's because I'm logging it. Oh, it's an object. Okay. Anyway, what it is? What if I did person at 0? What is that going to be?
12.
Yeah. That's going to be 12. But what if I now pass this an object? Now that's undefined. And now this is an object. So when you're writing functions, so I really just like want to like, these are 2 different things. Like here you are writing the function. Here you are calling the function. So you write the function, you're kind of just making up this name person, but you're really thinking, okay, I'm expecting this person to be this type of data. So in my function, you don't know exactly what it's going to be. You're thinking, oh, this person is going to be a name. It's going to be an object that has a name, which is going to be a string, and it's going to give me an age, which is going to be a number. There's no way I'm going to know what the actual values are going to be. I just know the type. So that's what I was doing here. So I can just return, you know, hello, I am person dot age. And then I can say this like info1, set that to a variable. Do a console.log of that. Well, yeah, hello. I don't want to do age. I want to do name. Cool. But so, yeah, if someone passes me get info on a number 1, this is hello, I'm undefined, because it can't really guarantee this is going to like what is one.name? I don't, you're using my function wrong. So might break, might not. It's kind of obnoxious. That should break, stupid JavaScript, but why why do I think this should break? I kind of think like the one dot name should not be a thing. But anyway, it's just returning undefined. But does what I'm getting at make sense? I feel like I'm going to be drilling this into you with functions in particular. You really need to be kind of aware of like the data you're working with, what your data looks like. Because I'm writing this get info function, but it's only working for a very specific type of data. But it's going to work, you know, on any of these things that have like a, you know, an age and a name. So we make these info 2, info 3. Right? So I can write this function once, then call it many times on different of these objects. So it's like I'm redoing this, you know, because this can be a pain to write these strings, or maybe your function does a lot of work. Because now I can just in here, I'm like, oh wait, I want to also add the age. And I am person.age. Now I write this code in one place. I'm calling that function in 3 different spots. And boom, that change that I just made in one spot propagates to those 3 lines of code. So that's one of the reasons like functions are so powerful. They allow us to reuse code. They allow us to write this code once and then reuse it all over the place. Because like maybe, you know, I use this like 10,000 times in my program, this get info call. I mean, let's just do this like this. You know, blah, 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 blah. Like I have this just 10,000 of times in my code. And then my boss comes to me and they're like, hey, would you add years old at the end of this? Since I have this in a function, I can just go, yeah, that's no problem. Years old. Now that's going to propagate to all of those changes. Cool. So here's my function get info that works on one person. It gets the info for one person, right? And let me slack this out. So we kind of went on a couple different tangents there. All right. Where's my code? I have too many VS codes open. All right. And let's go back to where we have our objects. So I'm just going to paste that here. Okay, so now we can go do, now we have our people. So now we can do a people.forEach loop. And I'm not going to call this function. I'm just going to copy this and throw it inside of here. Because I'm still on this problem where I want to create an array of things, of these items. I could for now just get rid of this return and do a console.log. And just to test this out. And now I can go back and run my objects.js. Cool. So now I'm going through each of my people and I'm running that function. But I want to, yeah, like I was saying, man, I want to create, I don't want to just log this. I want to return a new array of these strings. Any ideas? This is just logging it. Do you get what like? I want an array that looks like this. I want some. Let's do it as a comment. I want an array of strings. Because when we get to React, what we're actually going to want, we're going to want an array of like it's not quite HTML, but it looks like HTML. So we'll just call it HTML. What if I want an array of HTML? We'll just keep it a string for now. But that's what React is going to want. React's going to want an array of this HTML stuff. So we're going to be doing this all the time where we get an array of these objects from a server, because that's how a server is going to send you back the data. But then we're going to want to go over it and make it look pretty. So then we can go throw that to our UI. So any ideas of how I can put all of these strings into an array? What did we do with our sum? We kind of created this sum before, and then we went through each of them and added the age to the sum. Well, why don't we do that here? Let's create an array. People strings. Let's call it people strings. That's just going to be an empty array. Let's go through each person. How do I add something to an array? Does anyone know what the method is?
I think it's push.
Push people strings dot push. And then I can I need to get rid of this thing because it's scrolling over. And then I can do a console.log. People strings. Yay, there's our array. We could throw that in a paragraph tag. React's going to be able to take that and throw that to an HTML page, and then you're going to have 3 paragraphs on your HTML page. So we've gone from an array of these objects to now to something that's going to be usable to our UI on our website. There's actually a better way to do this. The for each method is not the best method to use. There's another method that is good. So let's say this, and then what time is it? 5 o'clock. It is, okay, we'll say this and then we'll take a break. So the for each loop goes through each thing and performs function you pass it. But it returns undefined. So it doesn't return anything. There's another function called map. It's very similar to the for each. It goes through each thing and performs the function on it. You pass to it. But there's a special thing about this function. This function, okay, let's say what this function returns will be added to a new array. And at the end, map returns that array. So map is good. Map is used when you want to convert an array of one thing to another. There's like a good illustration, like let's say I had like an array of, I don't know, let's just call it XXX. We would map over it and we get an array of YYY, just something different. We take 3 things of X and we get 3 things of Y. So we have this, notice how we have this get info function that takes an object. Doesn't this get info just do this, like it takes an object and returns a string? Okay, so let's do this. Let's do people.map. Let's actually pass it this get info function. And the map function itself returns that new array. So I'm going to set this result to, you know, people, I'll just call it HTML. So we'll throw on some HTML here. We'll do an H1 just so it's different. H1. That's actually HTML. That's still just a string, but we'll kind of fake it for now. So let's just read this. So I'm doing a people and I'm calling it .map. So I'm going through each of my things. So I'm going to go from this type of X to this type of Y. So I'm going to go from this array of string objects to an array of strings. And this get info is telling me what it's going to return is what's going to be pushed into that new array. So I can do a console.log peoples.html. And there's our array of HTML. So I'm going to do one more and then we'll take a break. Sorry, I'm going to do filter really quick. Let's just first write if function is, then we did this yesterday, is over 21. I just want to write a function to see if one person is over 21. This function takes a person. Now, once again, I'm defining this function. So whoever's using this function better pass me that person object that has a person that has an age. So I'm just going to return person dot age greater or equal 21. Okay. So let's just do a console.log is over 21 Paul. Let's just look at Paul. Paul is 22. So what would you expect this to log? Paul is an object. And I can just do it like this so we don't have to, like, I could just say name. Age is 22.
It would be true, right?
True. Yeah. So let's look at that. There's a true. And then if, you know, if I gave it something that was 12, that'd be false. If I give it something that doesn't have an age, that's false, but that's a little misleading. Once again, you know, I really want that to have an age. So that could be one of those potential bugs. Cool. So this function just returns true or false, whether or not the person's over 21. What I can do with filter is a method like map and for each where I can go through each of the things. So filter goes through each of the things. If the function you pass it returns true, we keep the thing. So another way you could think of filters like you go from an array of X's, you're going to get back the same type of data, but you might remove some of them. So with map, if you start with 3 things, you're always going to get 3 things back. They're just going to look differently. With filter, you're going to start with, 3 of something, but you might remove some of them, but they're going to be the same type. So then I could do something like this, let people over 21. I'm going to call the filter method and then pass it this is over 21 function. People's, I guess that should just be people. Oop, I deleted the O. So the map, we went from the array of objects to this array of strings. The filter, we still have the same type of data, but we have removed Jill from our array because Jill is not 21. So map and filter, once we get to React, those are the ones that we're going to use a lot. For each can be useful probably for some of the homework questions this week. But those are kind of the 3 I want us to focus on for this week. The for each, the map, and the filter. And we'll spend some more time with this, but let's take a break. And maybe do some more, spend some time on some like homework questions. And I will Slack this whole thing out. Cool. Let's come back at, let's just call it 12:35. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, so I think for the rest of, like, so we can kind of just have like an open question Q&A type stuff. So because we did talk about a lot. So where are you confused? Is it everywhere? Nowhere? Usually when it's dead silent, I always get worried that that's like, you don't even know what questions to ask.
The for each loops make a lot of sense, but we just haven't done a lot with the maps or anything. So I couldn't do a map by myself yet, I don't think, but
We can
the for each
do
I can do.
we can do more with the map and filter if you want.
That's a good idea.
Cool. Because those we will use a lot. So yeah, we can go ahead and do some more examples of those. Just kind of see them in different ways. So I kind of want to. So part of your homework for today, you can start working on homework 2 and homework 3. So some of these, so there's going to be like homework 3, you're going to have this one where you take an array of numbers and you want to double that array of numbers. So that would be a good use case for map. So I have you do this as 2 parts. You first just write a function that takes one number and doubles it. And then you're going to use your map function to go through an array of numbers and double all the array of numbers. And then there's another one that another function where I want you to go through all an array of numbers and just grab all the even numbers. So once again, it's like a 2-step process where you write a function is even just to see whether or not the number's even. And then you're going to use that function to go through your array of numbers to do that. And let me kind of explain to you, there's a lot of comments here. This is actually a standard JavaScript comment syntax. And let's just look at this double number function and these comments. So what these actually do, this is telling you what the function does. It doubles a number. It's telling you about the parameters. So this is actually saying, hey, this parameter needs to be a number, and it's called num, and it's returning a number. It's going to be the number times 2. Now these can be useful because if I go do like call this function double number, what these comments do is when I hover over this, you see this little signature up there? I wish I can't point up there, right here. Const double num. It's saying, hey, it takes this num param, which should be a number, and this function returns a number. Now it doesn't know if I pass it that, it's not smart enough to know that I'm not passing in a number. It's more just for documentation. We can actually, there's actually a language called TypeScript. It's a typed version of JavaScript where it would actually fail, but we won't talk about that. This is just more for the developer to be like, okay, I'm letting you know, hey, when you write this function, this is going to be a number. Let's look at this double array signature. So this is param, and then it has array, it has this array syntax and then number. So it's expecting this to be an array of numbers. And these are going to be the ones to be doubled. And this is going to, this function should return a new array with the numbers doubled. So that's kind of the syntax of that. Let me look at homework 2. Yeah, homework 2, you're going to be adding items to an array. Add item to a new array. So these will just, let me just. Oh yeah, okay, let me talk about this too. So, all right, I just want to make sure that I'm kind of giving you all the information. So let's do this. I'm going to go back to just my VS Code. I'm going to just do this in the arrays.js. Actually, I actually want to use, well, no, let's just do it here since we'll use the testing tomorrow to kind of show this. So we will definitely talk about this tomorrow because this is a little more complicated idea, but it does relate to like map and filter. So let's say I have an array of people. And for now, I'm just going to keep it simple and it's just going to be an array of strings. Okay. So I'm going to introduce you this term of mutation. And you know, it's also kind of called side effect. Let's say I want to add something to an array. What method did we use? We used the people.push, right? And then we could do Jill. So I'm going to run this node array.js. So here's what I would say. The push method is mutating my people array, right? It's adding it, it's changing it. And sometimes that's fine, and sometimes that's actually not good. When we get to React, we are not going to want to add this way. We want no mutation. So how do I add something to an array without changing it?
Could copy the array first and then add something to the copy.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to copy the array. I'm going to create a whole new array. That's essentially what I'm going to do. So I'm going to say something like this. Let new people equal. There's a really nice way to copy in an array in JavaScript. You just do ... and then people. Or let's just do it like this. Let's do it in 2 steps so it's a little less confusing. I'll call this people clone. And so I use the curly brackets. And then I do a console.log. So I have two arrays now. So you can think about this as like, when we're talking about are things equal, it depends on what you mean by equal. So imagine I have like 2 cans of Coke on my desk. Are those the same? It kind of depends how you define how are they the same. They're not the same in the fact they are not the same can. They're 2 different cans. They're the same in which they have the same properties. It's kind of like identical twins. So when we clone something, it's kind of like that. We're creating something entirely new, but they're the exact same as far as they have like the same things. So right now my people clone, it's a completely different array. It's just a copy of it. So now what I can do is I can do a people clone dot push. I can mutate this array, I don't care. Jill, of course, let's do Georgia Frank. So let's get rid, I'm going to get rid of this push. So we're not pushing anymore. And then I'm going to log people right here and log my people clone. So my people is unchanged. That's good. That original array is unchanged, but my people clone, now that has the extra array. There's actually a quicker way to do this. I don't need to just push it right here. I can copy my array and then add the thing at the end. Maybe I don't need to call this people clone. I can call this new people because that's like my new people list. Cool. Does not change people. No side effect. / mutation. That's not to say mutations are bad or side effects are bad. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But when we do get to React, they are going to be bad. We're not going to want to do them. So we're going to be doing stuff like this. If we want to add something to an array, we're going to copy our array and then add the thing. So going to the map function. So let's say I want to change, I'm going to want to change this array to, instead of being an array of strings, I'm going to want to have, like, I'm going to want to format this in like some HTML looking stuff. It's still going to be a string, but it's just going to be a little different. So I'm going to write a function, const, wrap in header. So I just have a function that takes a string, and all it's going to do, I'm going to use my interpolation again. It's just going to do an H1 tag. Then I'm going to interpolate the string that was passed to me. Voila. So this is a function that can just take a string and then it's going to wrap it in an H1 tag. This is really not an HTML. This is still a string, but I'm changing the string. So I could do const, header 1 equals wrap in header and pass it a string, yo, console.log header 1. See, so that's just that string that is now wrapped in those H1 tags. Questions on that so far? So now I have an array of people. So now I can go like make it variable header people or people headers. I guess I should call it people headers. Let's set that equal. So I'm going to map over my people array. And I just pass it that function that takes a string and returns the string wrapped in a header. And then I can do a console.log of my people headers. One, two, three. Now, did this mutate the people array? Does the map function actually change people? Let's look at it. No, it does not. So map returns a new array. No, it does not. It doesn't mutate the array it was called on. And that's good for React. We'll definitely spend more time on this like mutate concept and then also map and filter. But that's all map is doing is we're going through an array. I think this is the, if you can kind of, we're going through an array of whatever, of some sort of thing. Then we're going to perform our function on it. Our function on all of those things. And then we're going to get back a whole bunch of different things. Well, it's going to be the same amount of things. So if I have, 5 X's, I'm going to get back 5 Y's. Does that make sense? With our people, we started with 3 strings. And then we ended up with 3 strings that were wrapped in H1 tags. So that's the map function. I could do some, like, let's just do something. Let's take a function that takes a string and returns all of the characters in that string as an array. So that I would use the split method, right? And just split on not even an empty space, but just split on nothing. So I could call this get char array. Let me do this. Let's actually do this down here. Okay, so if I do like like get char array and I pass it like hello. And console.log this, just to kind of show you what this is doing. This function takes a string, it splits it, and it splits all the characters up into an array of the characters. So I'm going from a string to an array of characters, to an array of strings. Okay, so what if I do this with my people array? I'm just going to call this X. Let's try, before we run this, let's maybe try to think, what is X going to be? So I know if I pass one string to this function, it splits it and it returns an array of all of the individual letters. But now I'm going to pass this function to my people.map call, which is going to go through all my people. Can anyone guess what this might return?
Are they going to return X's?
Not X's.
So because you're using the map function, it'll go through each item on the array. And since each item on the array is a string, it should basically return one long array of all of the different characters in all of the strings.
Yeah, so yeah, well, I don't know if this is quite what you're saying, but it's going to give us the array of, it's going to give us an array of arrays of the strings. So let's run that. So there's our array. And then for each thing, we have an array of the strings. So now we have an array of arrays. question. Okay, so X is now an array of arrays of strings. How would I get G? Let's say I want to get G from X. How do I grab that?
I'm wondering if you want to do X and then brackets and then the 0 index and then another set of brackets in the 0 index. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, that's it. Because doing the X at 0, that grabs me this array.
Okay.
And then doing the 0 of that grabs me that index. And there's the G. So I could do something like this, just getting into nested arrays. I could do an X dot for each. Let's just call this Y. Just make these really obnoxious names just to show you why. Well, really, what would be a better name for X? I mean, naming variables can be hard. What should I call this? I don't know, like name arrays. Sure. Go through each name arrays, and then for each name array, then I got one name array. But name array isn't an array, right? So I could do a name array dot for each. This is now, but I don't know what to call it. This is now a letter. So now I'm doing a nested for each loop because I have an array of arrays. And I go through each and then I go and, log the name. So I could do a console.log right here. How would I join? How do I take an array of characters and join them back into a string? That is the join.
With
method.
join.
Yeah. Name array dot join. So maybe join these on a dash. So we can kind of see what's going on here. So I'm going through each of my arrays. I'm going to join the array just in this one line, but then I can also then do it for each loop on that inner array. So yeah, we're having some fun with some arrays of arrays. Cool. Mess around with this one. I think nesting is one of the kind of challenging things to get your head around with coding. But it is common to have you have an object. Let's do a little inception. Since we did an array, a loop in a loop, let's do some weird object. So let's just do just make this confusing. So you can come up with all this stuff where you have, objects, and you can have arrays in objects. You can have objects in arrays. Okay. How do I grab the one? When you do these, just do them step by this. I think these are good just to do step by step. So like what I mean by that is how do I grab the thing, the closest thing that has, because I want to grab, let's do this as like, because we do have, let's do this as like, yay, I want to grab that.
So you would want to start by grabbing the key of D, because that initial, like the biggest thing there is an object.
Yeah.
And then within that object, that key has a value of an array. So then you'd want to find the 0, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Value?
Let's start here with the D and let's just run this.
Okay.
Wait, I don't want to push that because you're on the right track. But yeah, so I'm logging X of D. So now I just have that array. Cool. So then you're saying what's to grab 3, the third index. Let's log that one. Okay, well, that is just an object that has the key of T. So I could do dot T. Okay, well, now I just need to grab Y off of that. I keep on trying to push. Yay. So it's X dot D. So I'd say, hey, grab me D, then grab me the fourth thing in that array of D, and then grab me T, and then grab me the Y key. That's beautiful, huh? Looks lovely. These are good to like do stuff like this, like name it horribly, and then try to grab it. Let's do this. Okay, so let's come through here. Let's say I want to go through X. And let's actually call this like Q. I want to go through and through X, I want to map through Q and find all of the numbers greater than 5. All right, so first of all, I want to get this array. So I'm going to do something similar to what we did there. I'm going to go try to find that. So that's going to be X dot S. Just run that one at that grabs me this object. Well, then I want to do a dot Q. Cool. There's my array. Well, can't I just do a filter on a array? So I'm going to do a filter. What does a filter want? A filter wants a function that returns true or false. If it returns true, it's going to keep that value in the new array. If that function returns false, it's not going to keep it. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say return num greater than equal to 5. And I'm going to store this whole value in some greater than 5. And then console.log greater than 5. And there's our array greater than 5. Now, this is like really badly written code because it's really hard to read, right? This by doing all this nesting and by having all these weird like names that don't mean anything, it makes it really hard to follow. But this can also be, as you're learning, this can kind of be almost a good way to learn because it really challenges you to think about what we're doing. I think sometimes, especially, when I'm coding and I'm like leading a lecture and I'm coming up with good names for things, I think it can almost sometimes confuse people because like when I was like using like the person in my function, I think people were getting confused. that's an actual person or it has something to do with a person. It doesn't, it's just like an arbitrary name. So sometimes really misnaming things, then you kind of know, oh, this doesn't mean anything. So spend some time. I'm going to Slack this out. This is definitely a little more challenging, but let's see here.
Yeah, James, I was going to mention that earlier. I was getting confused with the num and nums and like those. I was like, I think the names are like too close or they mean, or I don't know. But I think I agree with what you just said.
Yeah, and you're going to find there's times because you are going to be using the same word over and over again. And it is actually what you're going to want to do because it's descriptive of what the thing is. You're not going to want to call something X just because you used number before and you're like, oh wait, I want to just name this something different. You want to call it what it is. So it might be in like one of your JavaScript files, especially once we get to React. There might be like people like 40 times in your code. And people and peoples. And it can get really confusing and it gets to the point where like you're looking at a word, it'll be like a 4-letter word and you'll be like, I don't even know what that word is. And you'll forget how to spell like tree or some weird words. I don't know. It's a weird thing that happens. And it's confusing. So I think sometimes what I do is I think sometimes it can be good to name things poorly on purpose. So that's kind of what I did in that last example. So, and I'll do a lot of that as we go through the course. And I'll let you know, like, hey, don't name it this, but I generally like throw like a yo in it or something silly. But yeah, I think this is a good place to stop. I did push up these questions. I'm trying to see where it is. So I did go through kind of during our breaks on this GitHub. I know you have your own list of questions. This might be a little different. Some of them might be similar, but these do have answers. So if it has the yo, spend some time with it. Once again, there's probably like, I don't know, 100 questions on here. So it's not like I'm expecting you to know all of these. But I think this can just be a good reference of some of the things I think you might want to know. And some of these things we haven't even talked about. So we will get to them. It's just a reference. Cool. Well, if there's no questions, we can hop off for lunch.
I have one more quick question. Sorry. You said that we were going to submit the homework stuff on Friday, but then I looked at the calendar and it said it was due on Monday.
Yeah, it's more just probably, I think Monday is going to be fine. But today the homework's going to be the same. Tomorrow I'm probably going to give you something new. I just don't want you getting behind, like thinking I don't want to like to pile up. So.
And then where we put the link in Neo, is that when we turn it in is like on Monday or when you decide, or do we need to be like updating that link or putting that link in like today? Or
you should have it. You technically really should just have it turned in now, because what you're turning in is your GitHub link. And then you're just it's what you're going to last push up is what we're going to see. So when you push up your changes, that's what we pull down. So technically it's usually like, even though we say the homework's due on whatever day, it's, we're just going to grade the last thing you have on GitHub.
So I have a real quick question about the homework.
Yeah.
So I was doing the homework 2 and experienced a kind of a weird bug. Can I share my screen with you?
Yeah. Can we actually, can we talk about this when I have a staff meeting?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Can we just answer it when we come back?
Mhm.
And I'm sure everyone, and then we'll look at it then. Cool. Sweet. Well, yeah, let's just, yeah, if there's any other questions about the homework, let's just ask them when we get back.
Which one do you want us to come back into, this one or the help desk?
Go to the help desk.
And then at
Okay.
2:10.
210. Yeah, let's do 210.
Alrighty.
Cool.
All right.
Have a good one.
Alrighty.
And